Fernando Alonso is known to produce the occasional otherworldly drive, but Sao Paulo was one of his best. His teammate Lance Stroll also put in a performance to be incredibly proud of. But this is the team who scored just 6 points in the previous 2 races after the spectacular failure of their Aston upgrades. So what kind of witchcraft was at work in Brazil that allowed them to destroy the competition? And what can the rest of the grid learn from their performance? I'll answer all that and more in today's video, so don't go anywhere. Aston Martin's first half of the season was like a quick trip to heaven. Alonso was on the cusp of a first F1 race win in a decade numerous times, and Lance Stroll was bringing in the points. They looked like serious contenders to Red Bull, but you all know the story by now. That challenge crumbled under the weight of the development race, and now they find themselves a comfortable 5th in the constructors' standings. Alonso especially was an absolute triumph. At Aston Martin, he seems to have found a home in a team that matches his unquenchable ambition for success. From 2014 to 2022, he managed 3 podiums in 7 seasons. Scant return for a driver of his undeniable caliber. In Sao Paulo, he earned his 8th of the season, and I mean earned. At 42, the Spaniard continues to set standards few other drivers can achieve, and to which so many have to aspire. In Brazil, he produced another extraordinary performance to burnish the legend of one of the greatest drivers in history. It was nothing less than a masterclass, up there with some of the best of his career. And there have been plenty of those already. This masterclass was a lecture on exceptionally intelligent defensive driving, fending off the Red Bull of Sergio Perez for most of the final stint of the race, even though the Mexican had use of the DRS overtaking aid the whole time. Then, when Perez finally found a way past at the start of the penultimate lap, Alonso fought back. This time, his guile was applied in attack, enhanced with a dash of bravery, and he reclaimed the position at turn 4 on the last lap. It was enthralling entertainment that topped off a weekend that was probably the best of the year from a fan's perspective. But this wasn't just the Alonso show, this was a whole team performance. The stately Spaniard is getting the media plaudits, but his teammate finishing in 5th cannot be overlooked. In terms of a performance from Lance, finishing behind Verstappen, Norris, Alonso and Perez is probably as good as he could ask for. If the AMR23 had been better off the line, something both drivers struggled with, and Lance hadn't had a 4.5 second pit stop, he could easily have been within DRS range of Checo as he battled with Alonso over the last dozen or so laps. So, how did this incredible performance from Aston Martin come around? They were abysmal in Austin with a host of upgrades that seemed to make the car worse. Mexico was just as bad, with both cars eventually retiring, not that they were competitive for points before that. The difference in Brazil was all about data. We have a lot of data, obviously, from the last 2 events, and we've been experimenting a little bit with the car and the setup and the packages, Alonso said at Interlagos in the Thursday media calls. I think we have some clear idea now, some better conclusions after the 2 events, which are the package and which parts of the package are working better in certain circuits, in certain corners. For here, because it's a sprint, we'll try to commit to something from FP1 and stay with it, and that will be the best package for this circuit. Aston Martin's performance at Interlagos might have appeared to be witchcraft, but in reality, it was just good old data-driven decision-making. This is the basis of how every decision should be made in Formula 1, but as Mercedes has proved this season, just because you have data doesn't mean you can understand it. After Hamilton's disqualification in Austin, Mercedes should have focused on setting their ride height correctly, but in Brazil, they ran far too high, ruining both their drivers' races. With proper understanding and data analysis, that could have been avoided and they could have been as competitive as Aston Martin were. Team boss Mike Crack promised after the Mexican race that Aston would rely on the data to determine what it would run in Brazil, and not necessarily push on with the complete new package just to prove a point. He followed through on that statement as both drivers started the weekend in Brazil with old spec cars mixed with a few of the newer parts. The team had clearly left Mexico understanding their new upgrades. They came to Brazil with a clear plan for how they were going to set up their car, and with just 1 practice session, which they appeared strong in, they got their choices spot on. It's impossible not to draw parallels to the Mercedes team, who also had significant upgrades in Austin which appeared to work at first, before Lewis Hamilton was disqualified for running an illegal car. In Mexico, they look strong as well, but in Brazil, with only 1 session to get their setup right, Mercedes proved that they don't understand the data their car is giving them. It appears that Merc needs the 3 practice sessions of a classic race weekend to sort a setup through trial and error, Aston Martin can do that before the weekend, based on data, because they have a better understanding of the data their car is giving them. On Thursday in Brazil, Alonso was talking about taking the best bits of all the new parts and having a weekend focused on performance rather than experimentation. This is just the perfect description of their weekend. They didn't need to play with anything in FP1. They knew where their performance was and made the most of it. Alonso highlighted just how much work had been done before the race on data analysis. In Mexico, we were very slow, but it was nice to see everyone in the team very focused. The determination was so nice to see, and to go deep in the analysis and get back stronger here. I was a little bit concerned for this final part of the championship, and now I cannot wait to go to Vegas. There was more on show this weekend than just impressive analytical skills from Aston Martin though. Friday's qualifying was a masterclass in team tactics and adapting to changing conditions. Stroll and Alonso were 6th and 7th in the normal conditions of Q1, and then with rain threatening but the track still dry, the Spaniard was as high as 4th in Q2, while his teammate just scraped through in 10th. However, Aston felt that only Red Bull and McLaren had quicker cars. Then came Q3. It was all about timing and making the best of it as the rain began to spit, but Aston Martin remained unfazed and absolutely nailed their decision-making, unlike those who decided it was best to wait for some space on track. The key to Q3 was getting both cars down to the pit exit before anyone else in order to get a lap in as soon as possible. While in retrospect that might seem like a no-brainer, others preferred to go a little later, calculating that they would hit just the right window before the deluge came. Going out later would also avoid the problem of losing tyre temperature while waiting at the end of the pit lane for the light to go green. Inspired by what Kevin Magnussen did with Haas last year, when he was first out of the pits and secured pole in changeable conditions, the strategy proved to be the correct one for Aston, despite the tyre temperature concerns. For Tom McCullough, who was Nico Hülkenberg's engineer at Williams when the Germans snared pole into Lagos on a drying track in 2010, the strategy was clear. Obviously, having the first two cars in Q3 gives you the best chance to get the lap in before the rain, he said. The conditions were difficult, and by doing that, the tyre temps aren't right either, but you can't get everything. We also got traffic on the lap because some of the guys who were later out were getting in the way a bit as well. But hey, second row of the grid, third and fourth, a fantastic result. Haas were the only team on the grid at Interlagos with two former pole sitters, and they were the inspiration behind Aston Martin's decision to get out on track ASAP. Mike Crack said that Magnussen's 2022 pole charge was a good example of what to do when dark clouds are coming in Brazil. We have learned some lessons last year. With Kevin, you have to be the first one with the weather menacing like that, he said. It is true, you lose tyre temperature, but if you're a little bit ahead of the rain and someone else is catching the rain, that is a much bigger effect than the tyre temperatures. So that is a choice you have to make. The work on the pit wall was really world class today, and then the drivers executed fantastically as well. A result like Brazil is exactly what Aston Martin needed to lift them out of the slump they found themselves in since the summer break. If Aston Martin really have got their heads around the new package, then it's a great sign for the remaining two races and next season. They proved that smart analysis and a good understanding of how the ground effect cars work is all you need to find success. That's a lesson that plenty of teams on the grid need to learn. What did you think of Aston Martin's impressive weekend in Brazil? Can they repeat it in Las Vegas later this month? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you want more F1 news and analysis like this, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, drive safe and bye for now.